Evening and welcome to the Old Colony Budget Subcommittee meeting of December 8th, 2020. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed via Facebook on the Old Colony Facebook page and is being held remotely. In attendance this evening, we have the Budget Subcommittee Chairperson, Mo St. Amand, Shirley Burke from Rochester, Bob Marshall from Lakeville, Dick Gamache from Mattapoisett, Jolene Costa, Secretary to the School Committee and Assistant to the Superintendent Director, Sarah Griffith, our Business Manager, and I am Aaron Plansky, Superintendent Director. At this point in time, I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. St. Amand from the town of Acushnet.
Good. Hello. Want to call the meeting to order, and this is going to be for fiscal year 2022 for the proposed budget. And I'm going to turn it right over to Sarah because she's the lady who's got all the info.
Oops. Sorry, my dog is barking. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. We're going to start tonight by going through the draft budget detail. And we're going to go kind of line by line and take a look at what's happening. So I'm going to screen share. And we'll start with detail. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Just gonna move my screen here. Okay. So we'll start at the top in the 1000 series. There's no changes being requested for FY22 here. We have our district treasurer, school committee budget. And see if I can scroll. Oops. I'm sorry, my scroll is not working well. Okay. School committee budget, Mr. Plansky and Ms. Jolene Costa, the superintendent's administrative assistant, their salaries are there, as well as the longevity for the admin and the non-union members. Everything is level funded with last year, FY20, or this current fiscal year, FY21. And we come to the superintendent's budget. And NEASC membership dues, newspaper postings, which are mostly required by the public law, where you have to notify the public via newspaper, and our school spring subscription, which is how we notify of any postings that are necessary for the school. Then we have our public relations and a recruitment budget, miscellaneous supplies, my office, which is under this program 005, which you'll see at the kind of the end of the account number over here, the business office and the business office employees, some of the miscellaneous fees that we have to pay, Medicaid, cost report processing, task fee, third-party administrator for 403Bs, and a credit card processing fee that we pay for the credit card machine up front in the main office. Then we have, yes, Mr. Marshall.
Sarah. Could you explain what task, flex spending fee, TSA?
Sure.
And yeah, just those two.
Sure. So the task flex spending fee is a fee that the district pays to offer flexible spending saving accounts to our employees.
Ah, gotcha.
Okay. I believe we're at $2,000 annually. It might be $2,500. They elect and they can contribute. They also pay a portion of the fee.
Right. Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Third-party administrator, which is TSA, oversees our 403B. So we have pension. We're all required to contribute to pension, but we do have some other options if people would like to have an additional contribution for retirement savings.
Very good.
And that
Thank you.
Third-party administrator, TSA, they oversee that. You're welcome. Then we come to our financial statement audit, end of year procedures, which are required, our OPEB valuation, and student activities audit. This is the budget line for those items. Next is our postage lease and postage fee that we run all our postage up front. Miscellaneous supplies, that's the business office. And then legal services, that's a budget for legal for next fiscal year. The next person on the list here is Mr. O'Neill, who is our technology coordinator. One change that you will see is I took the amount of money that we had appropriated under this line, which we had appropriated towards salary for FY21. We had $25,000 there to get some help for Kyle in the IT area of Old Colony. Through many conversations with Kyle, Mr. Plansky, Mr. Parker, what's kind of best for Mr. O'Neill and what he needed for support, he decided, and we all decided to use it as a contracted service. So you're going to see that needed to be moved in the budget. It can't be listed under the salary line. It's going to be in a contracted services sort of later on when we get down, and I'll point it out to everyone when we get there. Next, we come to the contracted services for technology, and this is school-wide technology needs that are necessary in order to run the building and our various school-wide oversight. So SoftWrite is the general ledger accounting software that we use. I did put some descriptions by these this year to help the budget subcommittee if you'd like to know more about some of the various contracted services that we have. We have Harper's payroll services. We have our school wireless that we need to pay for, our website management software, Adobe licenses school-wide, TeachPoint, which is our teacher evaluation software. Heartland School Solutions in previous fiscal years has supported our cafeteria. And going forward, we're actually going to convert and have them do all online payment so that a parent can pay for, say, a senior's dues or a field trip. Or if we were to do some kind of fundraiser, they could make their payment online. So we're currently in the process of making that conversion. It is not an additional cost. We already have the service, so that's great for us. Go-To Solutions is our admission software. GoGuardian is teacher oversight for student Chromebooks. We have Family ID, which is an online forms. You can upload the form and the parent can complete them, which we've used this past year and in years prior. We have the Microsoft school licenses, which we purchased through SHI International, and DocuSign, which is an electronic signature system. All of these contracted services have gone up a little bit this year. The big one, the big hitter was the Microsoft school licenses for sure. That's an annual cost that we have to incorporate in the budget going forward. Next comes our student software, which is SchoolBrains, and our scheduling software that we're using, 35 logins. So you can see I've written it here. Again, trying to give you a little bit more detail so you know sort of what these things are used for. And that's enriching students. So those are there. Our academic coordinator, Katie Tuccinardi, and special education coordinator, Chris LaFay, and vocational coordinator, Beth Botello, are listed. Their salaries are there. And then we have, let's see if we can scroll down a little bit. The coordinator secretaries. So Brandon Mendez is the secretary for Chris LaFay, and Don Robert is the vocational coordinator secretary and also does a little bit of work helping the assistant principal. There's a miscellaneous supplies for graduation. That's being level funded. We're not asking for any more money for that. And then we have our advisory committee budget for the fall and the spring, which is also level funded. We're not asking for any additional funds. Mr. Parker, our principal, Johanna Kaufman, who is our Title I and MCAS grant coordinator, Title I, MCAS, and grant coordinator assessments. She's got a crazy title. Daniel Craig is our principal secretary. Gary Linehan is the assistant principal. We are asking for a little bit more money for Mr. Linehan's salary this year. Mr. Plansky, Mr. Parker, and I met this morning, and they would like to change his contract to being more days. So in exchange for the days, they would like to make him whole by increasing his annual salary, because he was working 190 days and they'd like him to work 210. So the budget subcommittee will see that as an increase when we move forward to our summary sheet. Contractual obligations, I have incorporated COLA for all staff. It also includes teacher steps. Rather than change each teacher's salary at this point, because the teachers have not negotiated their contract, we're just including everything in a lump sum for budgeting purposes and for discussion purposes, and keeping all of the teachers at their current step and lane that they're being paid in FY21. So we can go through each department. English currently has 4.5 FTEs. Math has 5 FTEs. Physical education has 2. Science has 4. Social studies has 2.5. Then we get to our shops. Automotive has 3. CAD 3. Computer science has 2 FTEs. Cosmetology has 3. Culinary arts has 4. Electrical 3. Electronics 2. Graphic communications 3. Health careers has 3 FTEs, and we budget for a nursing home liaison, which is like a contracted service for us. They're a 1099, not a W-2. And we have 3 FTEs for carpentry, house, and mill, and 3 FTEs for machine and tool. I think you all are probably seeing a pattern here. 3 FTEs for welding and metal fab. 2 FTEs for business technology. That wraps up our vocational shop salaries. I have a budget for longevity for our teachers. Again, we're still in the midst of contract negotiation, so everything currently is level funded with what it was for FY21. Stipend for mentor teachers. Our special education teachers, we currently have 4 special education teachers in the budget and 1 that is grant funded. Kept in the long-term substitute ask that we asked for in FY21's budget, level funded. Again, we're sort of uncertain times. I'm hoping by FY22 we're back out in full force and in need of these substitutes in our either in our shop or on the job site. Here it says job site, so I know that's probably what Ms. Vitella was requesting. Missed somebody. Substitutes, no change to the substitute line. Special education aides, we currently have 5 special education aides in the budget. Our librarian. Then we come to the 2357 function code for DESE, which is tuition and license reimbursement, travel and conferences, and professional development. And that's what you'll see on the next 3 lines. All level funded with FY21. We're not asking for any additional funds here. Actually, Mr. Polanski had me remove ADL, which was a professional development we were considering. It was a little bit expensive. We had included it in the budget last year. I think it was about $8,000. He has found a different avenue for this type of professional development he's interested in, and our staff is interested in, and it's at a much lesser cost. So I think that that's going to be great for the building for sure. So we removed an $8,000 cost from professional development that we had asked for in FY21. Next, we come to our textbook budget. I do want to make the subcommittee aware of the fact that both the academic coordinator and the vocational coordinator had textbook asks on their request sheets for next year. I talked with the academic coordinator in detail about the textbooks that they're thinking, and I think that would need to be a vote from our certified E&D once that happens. It's just such a large amount of money, and to do it piecemeal for our math department, I'm not sure that it would work. So the textbook amount that's in there is level funded with last year, and I'm thinking we can probably get some of the vocational department textbook requests done. They submitted about $10,000 in textbook requests, so hopefully we can cover that with this. And then there are a few asks in the textbook line that are platforms for educating the students, and came from our academic coordinator in combination with our principal and our technology coordinator. The first is Edgenuity, which is a platform where we can offer honors courses as needed to students who are requesting it or need it. I believe that the cost of $6,000 covers 10 courses. The next is Ed Puzzle. Yes, Mr. Marshall.
Sarah, I'm wondering, when you say it covers 10 courses, is that 10 courses with multiple people or 10 people?
So multiple students can enroll in those courses and they would get a teacher. So basically, the $6,000 covers 10 separate courses where they would have a teacher. And I don't know how many seats are in the class, but it would be, I think more than one student can enroll. Mr. Parker is here. He might be able to answer that question better.
Would that be a teacher within our building or outside of our building?
No, it is outside our building. So this
That's
is
what
a
I thought. Thank
contracted
you.
service with a
Yeah.
teacher outside our building. And my understanding of this, I talked to our academic coordinator, was should the schedule that we currently have not be able to accommodate a need for a student, an honors student, this platform gives us that ability.
Got it. Thank
Welcome. So Ed Puzzle and Pear Deck, I'm still learning about because I'm not a teacher, but Mrs. Tuccinardi asked me to say that these were both interactive tools that aid formative assessment. She said that the teachers would understand that. I'm still learning. So Ed Puzzle is a way for formative assessment to be embedded in a video for a student to look at and complete. And Pear Deck is an interactive presentation tool. Both of these items, the hope is that the academic teacher will be able to have a better check-in with their student when they're on their vocational cycle. They're doing things now, the academic teachers, to keep the kids working on their academics over their vocational cycle, but with COVID and purchasing these different softwares, I think that the teachers have realized, academic teachers have realized that it's very useful. This is very useful and something that they can continue to use to check in with students while they're on the vocational cycle. So those are those two pieces. And then Cami can convert, and I only can attest to this because they use it at my children's school district. It will convert any PDF into an edited doc, something an edit can be made. So it's actually it's genius. Whoever thought of it. And you can put any piece of paper online, and if it can read the text on the paper, it converts it to something that the student can then interactively answer the question and submit it to the teacher.
That would be extremely helpful
It's awesome.
to teachers and students.
Specifically, Mrs. Tuccinardi explained to me, the math department has found this to be a wonderful tool. So this CAMI license would be for the math department, those 5 teachers, to have license to CAMI for students to interactively respond. You can draw, you can make you can actually, write with the cursor on it, and then you can submit everything to the teacher right from that document. So it's been something that they've found to be a very helpful tool for electronically completing math assignments. Okay. So the reason I go into a little bit more detail is because those are asks. Edgenuity, Edpuzzle, Pear Deck, and Cami. They are instructional requests that we're looking for. The library supplies have been level funded with last year, no additional funds requested there. The supplies for instructional are a copier lease and supplies for our Savin service and supplies. No changes there. In fact, I have to say that CORE has been fantastic with maintaining our lease agreements with them and helping control costs. The representative that I work for with CORE has been great about helping control the costs. So we're keeping that level funded for next year. I did a little bit of a shift, which I just spoke with Mrs. Tuccinardi about, with the supply lines for academics, because they're not really using them in a way that is meaningful at this time. So I took English, math, and social studies, and I gave a little bit of funds to phys ed and science. They seem to need them more, especially science, where they're purchasing live things for their instruction that they have to refrigerate and have delivered a certain way. And so it's more expensive. And, I said to Mrs. Tuccinardi, I think we're trying to take care of everyone in the ways that they need it. And so, if math really needs CAMI and science really needs live algae, then if we shift that supply money around a little bit, I think it could be helpful for them. So there's no additional funds being asked for as far as those supply lines go for our academic. The only ask right now is the Red Cross training, which is part of the district improvement plan. It's an estimate for an entire class to be trained in CPR and other life-saving techniques that I'm not technologically savvy in talking about. I believe that was in the district improvement plan. So that is an ask, and that you will see is a change from FY21 to FY22. As we move a little further here into the vocational shops, I want to point out that in automotive, where are we here? Automotive, which is down at the bottom of page 10, has a software that they are currently using. Every 3 years, they need to renew their subscription. And I had made a note in this budget so that the budget module that we use with software, so that I wouldn't forget, it is expiring in July 2021. So the cost is $5,200. You will see that is change from FY21's budget to FY22's budget. And that is an ask in order to continue to pay for the software subscription that they have. CAD shop is level funded with last fiscal year. Computer science, I've incorporated a little bit more money into computer science, about $1,500, and that is to cover AP testing for seniors, I want to say, but Mr. Parker might be able to answer this better than I can. So it's $1,500. That's an ask in CAT and computer science. So you will notice an increase for computer science that we're requesting for FY22. Cosmo, culinary, electrical, electronics, and health careers are all level funded with last year. No changes there. House and Mill is also level funded with last year, as well as machine and tool. No changes. No changes to metal fab or business technology. I did increase the supply line for teaching general. This is where we purchase our paper, pencils, pens, highlighters, Expo markers, everything. So that, prices have gone up from prior fiscal years. I think that I increased it $1,500 to cover just a little bit of an increase in pricing there, that the teachers can have their supplies in school when they need them. No change to the special education budget. No change to miscellaneous technology supplies. That changes every year. Sometimes we need batteries. Sometimes we need adapters. Sometimes, you know, we need light bulbs for the projectors, and that's what I would charge that to. No change to the hardware line for technology. This is where we make some type of computer technology upgrade for the school annually. Not asking for any additional funds. We're just asking that it be level funded with last year so that we can continue to work on our technology plan and update technology as needed. Software line for technology is level funded. Kind of a shift. We're going to go to our 2710 function code for DESE, which is school adjustment counselor and guidance counselors. We have 2 school adjustment counselors. One of the school adjustment counselors has been on the 240 grant for quite a number of years now. I wrote the note, potentially consider bringing the position into the budget at some point. I do have FY22 written there. That's probably not going to happen in FY22 because of the circumstances that we'll get to soon. But I don't want to lose sight of that because there's only a certain amount of time we can keep positions on grants before, if we're going to bring them in the budget, we've got to consider if they're going to be permanent or not. Guidance counselors, no change there. There are 3. Our guidance secretary, detention monitoring, no change. Extra days for guidance are contractual, no change to that. Test proctor stipends for freshman replacement testing and summer program budget, no change to that, no additional asks for this year. Unfortunately, we used to get a grant for the summer program and we don't anymore. So we brought that into the budget last year. Supplies general for guidance, no change. Contracted services for special education, no change. That is for miscellaneous testing that needs to be done. Contracted services that need to be brought in for special education students. We'll shift to our 3200 function code, which is the nurse's office. No changes here. We have our nurse, physician, and supplies for the nurse's office. We'll shift to at the very bottom of page 13, function code.
Excuse me, Sarah.
Yes. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I pressed my space button and then I didn't hold it down. Nurses' supplies.
Yes.
I would think under these circumstances with COVID, et cetera, that line item might have to increase significantly. Is that funded someplace else or are there increases?
So we purchased a lot of the nurse supplies for COVID out of the COVID funds that were grant funded.
That's what I wanted. Yeah.
We will have to have a conversation about the current year's budget with COVID supply funding if there are not any more grants available for the remainder of the year.
Right.
The hope is that we will be funded additional federal funds to help offset the costs that were not budgeted for COVID relief for supplies. But that will be a current year conversation that we'll have to have. And, you know, Mr. Plansky and I have been talking about that a little bit. What are we going to do if the federal funds don't come? And I think that will end up being a conversation that we'll have to have. Do we reappropriate the current year's budget because we did that large pre-buy?
Right. I just wanted to make sure that supplies were accounted for someplace.
Yeah.
I'm good. Thank you.
I'm not sure that we would need to increase FY22. I'm really hoping by FY22 we're back in.
Thanks to
Okay. Okay. Function code 3300 is transportation, which is where we go next. Regular day transportation, you will see an increase. It is based on the contract that we have with First Student for FY22, the price per day. In addition, late bus transportation will reflect the contract pricing, contractual obligation of the $5.41 a mile. And again, that's based on what we utilize So if a late bus run doesn't go, we don't pay for a late bus run. Then we have our cafeteria manager. She is in our budget. And we move to athletics. So for the purpose of athletics, again, all of the stipend positions are in the teacher's contract. So they're all currently level funded with last year's budget because we don't know yet what's going to happen until until the contract has been negotiated. So we'll see the athletic director, Mr. Trahan is there. We'll go right down the line of the stipends. There are no changes to any of these items. Everything is level funded with last year. The one place where we made a few changes in athletics, we'll get through the stipends here. Again, no changes for any of these stipends. Our contracted services for the fall, winter, and spring, very small increases to the contracted services line. Again, that's relative to the current cost of having an umpire come in, of having someone come to keep score. Those are all dues that we pay on behalf of athletics. And the next piece is the contract services for athletics. So some small changes here. We currently have 12 students that would be playing hockey at $960 each. So that is a $11,520 bill. Some small changes to fees based on last year's actual being just a small amount more than the prior year. And then e-sport is an ask. And I don't really know a lot about that. So, Mr. Plansky, can you tell us a little bit more?
Sure. Sports is an online gaming opportunity for students who may not be involved in a physical capacity and activity, especially right now. But the MIAA actually has an e-sport opportunity available to students. And for our students who are involved in online gaming, this is an opportunity for them to be able to participate in something of this nature. In the absence of an athletic season, we thought this was also an opportunity to offer students something that they could participate in, given the nature of the restrictions we're faced with right now. And Zach Texera, one of our ELA teachers, attended a informational session on esports. He'll be doing a small presentation at the upcoming school committee meeting to teach us more about esports.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You will see an increase to the athletic transportation line. It is based on the transportation contract of other transportation as needed. It is based on the number of games and the wait time of those games. So there's a little bit of an increase there. And small increase for the trainer contract with South Coast Hospital Systems. We have had this trainer contract for a very, very long time. Mr. Trahan manages it very closely with the trainer that we are assigned, and we've been lucky to be assigned the same trainer every year since I've been, an employee with Old Colony. So she knows the building very, very well, and the students, and she has a great relationship with Mr. Trahan. If we don't use the hours, we've always been able to roll the hours into the following fiscal year, or use them in a different way, or maybe pay less money. So it's a little bit of an increase in case we need it, that we don't, not above our appropriation. Supplies general for athletics. I want to say I maybe increased that $1,000. Again, supply purchasing, the cost kind of goes up of everything as we go on year to year. And this is a little bit more reflective of the actual from FY19. Then we have lines for field improvement in athletics. Those are level funded. And that is the conclusion of the athletic department. Function code 3520 is student activities. So we've got stipend positions, again, that are in the teacher's contract. So they've been level funded with FY21. No changes to anything. We have yearbook, class advisors, student council, skills, National Honor Society. Gay Straight Alliance Advisor, non-traditional, OSHA, CVTE, drama, and robotics in the budget for next year. We have our budget line for transportation, field trips, and events. I have not changed that. It's always been adequate, and I don't foresee there being any issues going forward with that, even though the contract pricing has gone up a little bit. We've always had room for field trip and student activity budget with that transportation line. So that's level funded. All of the supplies for the student activities have also been level funded. There's no change to any of them. That brings us to facilities under the 4,000 function code. Our facilities department, custodians and maintenance, our manager, our part-time and overtime lines, no changes to those. Everything, all of the wage increases are included in the contractual obligation line. They also have longevity. Lines for gas and electric. I compared to last fiscal year and the year before that. Both have come in within what we've had for the budget. So I've level funded that with the previous fiscal years. Power Options is our purchasing consortium, and we pay them a small fee, no change to that fee. Remember our water testing, no change to water testing. No change to our communication line with our telephones and cable. No change to the vehicle inspection and repair line. That is for Old Colony's vehicles to be repaired as needed. So maintenance vehicles, the vans, our inspection stickers that we need, anything that might, happen. And then gas for those vehicles. So if the van doesn't go to a job that can pay us the fee for gas, like let's say the nursing home, we gas up the vehicles and we have to pay for it out of the gasoline line. Then we come to contracted services for the building. These are all common contracted services that we've brought in the past. I basically take the prior fiscal year, take a look at what happened in that line, and then there's the miscellaneous, which are unexpected or unanticipated costs. Level funded, there's been no change to this. The supply line for building has also been level funded, no changes. Equipment repair unanticipated is level funded. That is if something breaks in the building. We have a lot of equipment, as you all know. And this next line, 4,400 contracted services technology, is where we would need to budget for the hub tech managed services and cloud-based server that we purchased as a result of our cyber compromise over last winter. It's a little bit more money than we had initially budgeted last year. We budgeted $25,000 for it. The managed services, firewall and antivirus, and the cloud-based server backup is going to be $35,000. Did I say 100? I meant 1,000. I'm sorry. We budgeted $25,000 for this last year. We need $35,000 for it for FY22.
Sarah, if I may.
Yes.
Can you outline for me a little bit more of what we get for those services? What is it that they do for us?
Okay, I'm gonna try, but it is definitely not my forte. We can always have Mr. O'Neill join us at a later date. So basically, we had put $25,000 in the budget so that our technology coordinator could have some type of assistance.
Okay, this is what you were talking about earlier.
This is those funds. So
I'm good then. I'm good.
Okay. Rather than bring in a part-time help, he had a preference, which was we would go cloud-based with our server and have a contracted service oversee our firewall And they also they provide us 4 hours a month of additional services as needed that Mr. O'Neill can reach out to them if he has questions or concerns or something happening in the building that he is, concerned with. Severance liability is budgeted up in contractual obligations. Once we know who is retiring, we do a budget transfer in spring to fund the severance liability based on who's going to retire. I'm not sure that we have any notifications at this time. No, you're on mute. Do we have any notifications at this time?
We have one member of the staff who will be retiring.
Okay, so we will need some funds in the severance liability line, but some years we don't need any, and some years the principal, the business manager, and the superintendent retire all in 1 year. State retirement assessment is something that will continue to be on my radar, and I think also Mr. Plansky's radar. Anyone who retires from the school district who has the state as a pension, the district is required to pay a portion of those costs. So every time someone retires that is state, this state retirement assessment will go up. Unfortunately, I reached out to the state to try to see if they could give me a better way of budgeting for this, and they really can't. They said in April and May, you'll get your bill. I think our bill came last year in June. And at that time, you'll know how much money you'll need. And I said, okay. So this is based on an estimate that I believe we will have for the number of retirees that we will have, given no deaths, pension that we will have to contribute towards. The next piece, we're in the 5200 function code, so these are fixed costs. So we've started with state retirement, and now we're going to go to health insurance. We have 2 sources for health insurance right now in the district. You can have Gateway Health Insurance, which is our joint purchasing consortium that we're a part of. We are a member of Gateway Health Group. There are, I believe, 7 other members right now, and we will purchase health insurance through them. If you are a Teamster and you pay due to the Teamsters dues, you can purchase Teamsters health insurance. The only issue with that is I have no idea what type of rate increase they will have, if any, for next fiscal year. So I am estimating a 7% based on our actual for this year. That means for September, October, November, and December, who enrolled in health insurance and who didn't. 7%, I believe, would be worst case scenario. So I do foresee as we get a little bit further in the year, have a better idea for what we will, Gateway specifically, will decide on for rate increase. I'll be able to update that and kind of fine tune it. But I wanted to go sort of err on the side of caution because we can always come down. I would hate to have to say, I thought it was going to be 4 and now it's 8, because I'd rather be able to come down. So I'm budgeting a 7% increase on actual FY21, FY22 enrollment. That should really say FY22 enrollment. So I'll update that. The rest of the fixed costs for the 5200 series are life insurance, employer portion. So if you are part of our basic life insurance plan per the contracts, Old Colony pays a portion of the basic life insurance plan. If you choose voluntary, that's 100% on the employee. If they want above and beyond, I believe it's $5.20 of pay a month, $5.20 a month. But we pay a portion of that. Then we have our disability insurance, which is again, basic disability insurance per the contracts. Old Colony funds a portion of those. It's with Sun Life. And then we have our payroll taxes. That should say based on FY21 actual. I apologize. I'll have to edit that. Unemployment insurance. This is a big topic right now because of all the unemployment fraud that's taking place. Old Colony pays unemployment insurance. So I don't know who, a long time ago, elected, and rather than pay based on the actual claim, we pay per payroll period based on the amount of employees that we have and the wages that they earn, a portion of that. So that annual cost may go up based on the unemployment claims that we've had that have not been fraudulent. We did have more unemployment claims, obviously COVID related, last fiscal year. So as of right now, the trend shows that this budget will cover what we have for our unemployment insurance that we're paying, that we've paid September, October, November, December. Then we have our annual sick leave buyback, which I have level funded based on last year's actual. It should be adequate. OPEB and stabilization contributions that we have appropriated. No change to those, level funded. Next is the retiree health insurance. We did have a couple of retirees pass away. So even though I am projecting an increase of the 7%, it is actually a decrease on the overall costs because those retirees are not part of the actual for the FY22 September, October, November, December trend. Our liability, umbrella, auto, and workers' comp insurance did go up a little bit this year. Specifically, it was the workers' comp side that went up a little bit this year, and I want to accommodate that. I will say for our liability, umbrella, and auto, our insurance agency that we work with, Hart Insurance Agency out of Buzzards Bay, has been fantastic about our rates year after year. It's that workers' comp audit that came last year. We had a few more incidents that were reported in the building, and therefore our risk factor increased a little bit. So we had to pay a little bit of money at the end of last fiscal year. So this should cover that going forward. New equipment control is level funded. We're not asking for any more. We would like to be able to keep that. We're already kind of, Mr. Plansky, Mr. Parker, and I have our eyes on a couple different things happening in the building that will probably need to get done. If not this year, definitely FY22. Next, we have some good news. We can finally apply the capital lease offset to our capital lease payment. Yay! So our debt is actually going to decrease from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. So you all will see in the 81 and 82 function codes, those 8100, 8200 function codes, interest is going down. We're getting towards the end of the capital lease and the bond payments. We have, I believe, 4 years left on both. And we are able to apply the funds that we've put aside to help the hurt of the capital lease balloon that will happen in the last 4 years. That brings us to the conclusion of our detail. And so let's just take a quick look at the summary. I went through this already in detail, but I do want to show everyone that when you look at the request compared to the approved budget for last fiscal year, there are 0% increases in the departments that we have discussed. And then you can see sort of some of the shifts in the departments that we discussed in the detail when we were going line by line there. So this is, we had a lane change in English. That's why you see a small increase, a percentage increase in the English line, 1.58%. That is a lane change for one teacher that I would like to reflect in that person's line for the fiscal year. You'll see the assistant principal at the top of the page. And you can see the current year, what the assistant principal is being paid based on that 190-day contract, and then the request for 210 days. It's right at the top of the page there. Special education teachers, at the bottom of the page, you see a decrease. That's only because the special education teacher that left was replaced with a teacher that's not making the same amount of money. So there is a decrease in that line overall. You can see the decrease in the professional development line based on taking out the ADL training, which was $8,000, and the increase in the textbook line where we talked about some of those items for instruction that are software subscriptions. It looks like a large percentage, but it's not a ton of money. Like, it's hard sometimes, those percentages, when they're based on small amounts of money, they are skewed a little bit. Then we'll get to the supply line. We talked about a little bit that I moved some of the money from English, math, and social studies into phys ed and science. And then, of course, we talked about the Red Cross training in phys ed, which is why you see that increase there. And then we discussed the automotive license and the computer science AP testing. Sorry, I'm there. It's slowing down a little bit though. Supplies general for teaching, the small increase there. They had $23,000 last year in the supply teaching line. I'm asking for $25,000 this year, again, to cover the costs of supplies and materials going up for the teachers to continue to have supplies and materials in their classroom. You will see right down the line, no percent increase until you get to the bottom, and that's our transportation contract. The percentage increases there. And now we're back in athletics, and we talked a little bit about contracted services, small increases to contracted services, and the physician contracted service, which is the trainer. That's an overall 4.7% increase for athletics. No changes to student activities, as you can see, 0%. No changes to the custodial and maintenance and the facility manager salary lines currently. No changes to any of the supply or contracted services lines on page 9. So this is, we went through it in detail, but I just like to show you the comparison of the year to year. We talked about state retirement assessment and insurance. You can see the reflection of the health insurance for retirees actually going down, even though the increase is there. School-wide insurance, you can see the increase there, and the bond and the interest at the bottom of the page being helped by our offset to move forward. So this brings us to an initial request to the budget subcommittee of $13,004,223, which is 2.96% increase on the FY21 approved budget. This is just a summary of what we've gone through in detail. It's a nice report that SoftWrite provides, and it helps me populate some of the breakdown that we look at. So it's the same information, just in a different way. Now we get to basically taking that draft budget roll up and showing the budget subcommittee what a breakdown of net school spending, other school spending, and debt would look like with the draft budget, and then the application of non-resident tuition from the revolving account for that will be collected in FY21 to be used for FY22. It is based on 68 students. And now we get to the fun part. In order to do a calculation for an estimate and apply funds to our budget, I use the FY21 Chapter 70 administrative update that was released in the summer. Basically, I took the Chapter 70 that they allotted to Old Colony and our foundation enrollment and came up with a per pupil. Then I applied the per pupil cost to the foundation enrollment for FY22 to come up with a Chapter 70. Now that means no increase in funding. It would mean we were level funded, but we do have an increase in our foundation enrollment of 27 students. Transportation reimbursement aid is based on our contract for first student and paying 80% of the contract over the life of FY21's fiscal year, and then getting a 70% reimbursement on that. That's how I came up with that number. Again, using an estimate so that we can have a conversation about what assessments might look like.
Yeah, Sarah, I take it that these bottom numbers here are, certainly something that we expect to change, correct?
I expect them to change. I don't know that I would expect them to change very much, because let's talk about Chapter 70 for a moment. We may get $25 more per pupil. Sometimes that's what happens with Old Colony with our Chapter 70. And that probably would be about $10,000. So we may have, about $10,000 more in Chapter 70 than.
All right, so
what
these
I
are
have
likely
here.
going to be in the ballpark.
I've been pretty close in years prior, so I feel comfortable using them to have a conversation about what assessments might look like, and I think that will be pretty close. The one area that we might work out better is on the transportation fund offset. So the very last line of the funds applied is the transportation revolving account. And so what can happen is in FY21, based on however much we pay, we may actually, if we get more than 70% reimbursement, we'll have additional funds to apply, just like we did this past fiscal year. We got more than that 70% reimbursement. And so we were able to apply additional funds to the offset going forward. So that could be something that might change significantly if we get, say we get 80% reimbursement. That would be great. Again, China's kind of stay on the conservative side so that the total dollars assessed to member towns could potentially go down versus going up. Okay, so that gets us to the member town assessments and minimum local contribution. Again, I did the same exact thing I did for our Chapter 70. I took the FY21 administrative update that was released in the summer, and I took a per pupil on the minimum local contribution. And then I applied that per pupil to the number of pupils from our October 1, 2020 enrollment. Now that could very well change. We saw it happen where the minimum local contribution for many of our member towns went up significantly this past summer. I would not have normally expected that, but that is one of the variables we work with when we start talking about budgets in December, and we still don't have a concrete budget for FY21 from the state, from DESE. So for the sake of having the conversation, I did use the same formula to populate the minimum local contribution. And then we have the assessment in excess, additional local contribution that we're asking for above and beyond what the state requires. And transportation and equipment. These are assessed based on the statutory method, which is what is in our regional agreement. And then we have our capital and debt spending, still waiting on a few member towns to send in their census for school-aged attending students. I believe I'm waiting for Carver, Mattapoisett, and Rochester. So this might change a tiny little bit for those towns, but that would also change Acushnet and Lakeville because it's weighted over all of them. So 10% of all of our member towns' capital and debt is based on the number of pupils they have attending school in their town. We come to our current 10/1/2020 enrollment, which is the 494 students, which is 27 more than we had last year, foundation. And so the rest of the sheet, you all know pretty well. Does anyone have any questions about it, and I open the floor to conversation.
Sarah, has the 10-1 enrollment changed any? Like, let's say from 10-1 to 10-15, did we see any shifts?
I believe we did.
So we're not quite sure what number the state will pick up.
I tried to go on to the, attended a conference for Sims reporting that was done by the DESE Finance Office. And there's a report in the Sims reporting called report number 3, which is by town, but it wasn't available yet. So I'm not quite sure that they're ready to release that information. It could change.
But by 1 or 2, obviously 1 or 2. I mean, we're not
Yes.
talking significant changes.
No.
Do we know to what communities those changes may occur?
I do not off the top of my head.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay.
Early, they were nominal, I can tell you that. And also there was compensatory action taken. If there were a freshman involved, we would typically fill that slot with the next person on the wait list from our member town. So while it might not be the same town, the overall number will probably be similar if the flux was from a member of the freshman class. And again, I think it was nominal.
Okay.
Folks, I think Shirley, did you mention something about a 10-15 date?
I
That's
just
the-
threw that out
Ah,
because what we've had before is that we use the 10-1 numbers, and then we
Right.
find out the state used something on 10-7 or
They let you
10-8.
have the
I was
weekend.
curious in that 2-week swing.
Sometimes they let you have the weekend to think it over, you know.
I'd be curious, Mo and Bob, you're the 2 towns with the heavy hit. What are you thinking when you look at those numbers?
well, $232,000 above this year is a big hit. I guess I'm a little bit surprised, but when you look at the 8 extra students, that certainly counts for a big chunk of it. I'm not sure I can give you an intelligent response right now, Shirley.
Kind of in the same place too, Shirley. I mean, we got 15 extra more students, so that's a good chunk of money. And I'm not sure how our chapters, how we end up faring with the way they figure chapter 70 and how we're assessed. Because I know our assessments have gone up in town, so that may have changed things, to some good variability, I guess.
Let me throw the question out there just to be the devil's advocate here. Well, how does everybody feel about an almost 3% budget increase? So I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how that's going to fly. Because, we already heard from Rochester, who had said that they were asking their town departments to come in at around 2%. And that we, because of what we have differently in our budgets, they may look for something higher. I'm not sure 3%, and it's easy for me to say that because Rochester's not heavily impacted, even at the almost 3% budget increase.
But you have been in the past. But
We have been, but as we're hearing from everybody, these are going to be difficult days with anybody who's relying on state monies. The towns themselves, what's coming in for their revenues. So obviously what's coming in will affect what can go out. I'm just curious what everybody's thought is to an almost 3% increase. Or is this something we just floated out there and see what reaction?
that's probably going to be the thing to do because, I mean, typically the price of everything, even with this COVID, is going crazy on stuff.
Mhm.
So I mean, you know, you see it at the supermarket, I'm sure. As to what happens to your grocery bill and other things. Yeah. So I don't feel that it's out of line.
So I
Well,
think,
Go ahead.
you know, I have to sometimes think with the other side of my brain. Like, you know, we go through all the work to put the budget together, and I look at the budget that we put together, and I think this is a fair budget. We're not asking for positions, you know, we're asking for the fixed cost increases. I'm hoping that we can, you know, get a better rate for insurance and that we're not at 7%. But really, when you look at it, we're not asking for a lot. And so, like, part of me says, no, absolutely not. Member towns are not gonna approve this 3%. It's not gonna happen, you know. But the other part of me says to advocate for the school and for the teachers and the staff, and what they're asking for instruction. It doesn't seem unreasonable. So, you know, that's the other sort of
Yeah,
piece to the pie.
if I may, my philosophy has always been, whether I was a teacher in a classroom or a member of the school committee or whatever, is that our job is to, just as you said, Sarah, to advocate for the students. If the member towns say we cannot afford that, if we get a bigger than expected hit, whether it be from insurance or the state money doesn't come in, and there have been all sorts of rumors about what that may or may not be. We're asking you and Aaron and the teachers and everybody to put together a budget without all of the information that's needed. It's a pretty unrealistic thing to ask. Therefore, my advice, for whatever that's worth, would be to put something together that you think is in the best interest of the students, to advocate for the students, and then let the people who have to pay the bill tell us we can or cannot pay it, and then we go back and we take another look. I think you've already identified a number of items tonight that we'll be going back and taking another look at anyway. But that's the way I would suggest that we approach it.
I would agree, Bob. I think that historically, Sarah has been incredibly responsible and transparent in her budget preparation and presentation. I think that last year with a healthy economy pre-COVID, we came in at 4%, and that was approved. I think that with the struggling economy, to come in at the just under 3% with very little in terms of added service is very responsible on our part, and to just historically have seen the support we get from our member towns is phenomenal. On December 5th, we also spoke with our member towns about the significant increase in applications that we've seen and the need to accept additional students from within district because of the demand and the scores that we were seeing. So Acushnet and Lakeville do know that we have higher numbers forthcoming, because we also shared that at our discussions during the Freetown conversation when we had members of their finance committees present. So I think this won't come as a surprise necessarily. The question really becomes, is it feasible, right? And I think the advocacy is the biggest piece of this, along with the transparent communication that has been in place. But Sarah's reputation certainly is one of responsibility, transparency, and due diligence in the budget preparation process. So I'd like to just thank her for that, because I think she did an excellent job in her preparation of this.
I would agree.
Yes, she did.
Sounds
So,
like a- yeah.
she did her usual great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think, don't misinterpret what I said, because is this a responsible budget? Very much so. Because for all intents and purposes, it's a level service budget.
Yes.
Not asking for anything new or anything like that. But now, as I've cautioned all along with, when we talked about increased enrollment to 2 of the towns, now the reality hits. Okay, again, even at almost a 3%, I don't think Rochester's going to have a difficult time. But I don't know how somebody from Acushnet or Lakeville will look at it when they look at the percentage increase to their assessment. And I understand they all have to be educated somewhere. I do understand that.
I think it's also going to be important, given recent news, for those who are not aware. Freetown will be making a commitment to Bristol Plymouth. That's news that we recently caught wind of. And with that in mind, what we will see, and we just need to speak from a place of transparency and openness, is a continued increase in the number of students from our member towns who will attend Old Colony. And when we look at the trajectory moving forward, so we will move from just under 500 students to probably 520 something students in the following year. And that trend will continue until we have enrollment that's entirely of our member towns. And so it's something we'll need to communicate and consider as we move forward, because assessments will certainly be impacted.
Well, it also makes a difference to the towns here too, because some of this money typically goes to, like a question that sends kids to Fairhaven. So it costs money to do it. So if you take a kid out of Fairhaven and you bring them to Old Colony, it's probably costing a little bit more, but it's not a total hit as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. Could you take this off the screen, Sarah? Or
By the way, before you do that, Sarah, I have a question. I'm looking at this and it's saying that it's at 75%. In the future, is there any way to make that 100% without losing information?
Yeah, you just step on it.
Oh, that's a lot better. My eyes say thank you. Just for future
sorry about
reference. Just for future reference, folks.
You got it.
That
We
would be
can go to-
helpful.
Yeah.
We
I
can
thought
go
I
to
was
100%.
Especially when you went over the previous report. That really would have helped.
Yeah.
Oh,
See, I do that on my own. I do that on my own. Yeah.
you should have stopped me. Now I know.
Eric, can we do it again?
What? No, we cannot do it again.
I gotta go.
well, you guys mostly on computers. I'm on my iPad, which is even worse.
Yeah.
I could hardly read that one. Fortunately, I got the draft that you had sent. Email.
Yes.
I got my computer on the side of me, so I could see
Sorry
that.
about that. Now I know.
For
Well,
the
and
And
assessment.
I have to say that I called town hall today. I printed everything out except the first report you went over, because my ink cartridge budget is severely impacted, especially when you've got, those black lines that go through. If there's a way we can make that, I don't know, less black. I don't
I
know.
can't.
That would be helpful, but they're going to print it for me, so I'll have it.
Okay. Sorry about that. We could also have, if you want to come to the school and pick up a draft, we can
Yeah, that's okay.
have someone print one for you there.
So we all set? Everybody's
Yeah,
okay.
that's a lot to chew on.
Yep.
Want to set another meeting, or do we
Yep.
want to just hang off for now?
No, I think that if the committee would, I'd like y'all to look at it, take some time with it.
I
and
definitely
then-
would say after the first of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
let's
was going to say, I
reconvene.
need some time, Mo.
Let's reconvene
Yeah.
after the first of the year, if that's.
Sarah, any idea when state numbers will be in?
Oh, that's a good question.
Agreement.
I have no idea.
For which year, Shirley?
Shirley, FY21 or FY22?
Yeah, really. I'll take
Hopefully,
both at this point.
yeah, hopefully by the end of January, we have both, by the normal time frame, but I couldn't tell you right now.
Because really, Mo, to the point of meeting again, we're talking level service here.
No, I understand. That's why I'm saying after the
Yeah.
first of the year, and if it makes sense, you get the numbers approximately the end of the month in January.
Yep.
Early February.
I would say that's probably a good number, or a good date, Mo.
Yeah.
I mean, if we find out anything sooner than that, we can certainly change the date.
That sounds
But,
good.
yeah, it can be moved around, if we have to. But I'm
Sure.
just, as a, Groundhog Day, February 2nd.
An everyday Groundhog Day?
Feels
It
that
is
way.
pretty much.
2nd, Groundhog Day. I
Are
don't
we
know, you guys-
anticipating that the
everybody-
governor will still release his budget by a certain date? We don't have any idea on that, so.
I have no idea. My hope is that by our normal release date of budget, we are going to have an FY22 budget. Even if they can't figure out what to do with FY21.
Yeah, it's too
Yeah.
late for 21 now.
Yeah.
But Baker's got other problems he's trying to deal with. So,
Right.
for
I'm just asking for the next meeting because, it depends mainly on Aaron and Sarah, what their schedules are with the school. I mean, you guys have meetings like every day. And, you keep, a lot of times you got to shuffle things around. So I just wanted to put something that looked comfortable at this point for everybody.
Aaron, do you have a suggestion for a date, late January, early February that might work? To see if we can, you're muted.
Let me pop open my calendar and just see.
Okay.
Late January or early February, you said?
Well, yeah, it's probably early February, I would think, because we want
I
to make
would-
sure we have the state numbers.
I would say early February.
So, all joking aside, how about February 2nd? That's Groundhog Day.
Oh, boy.
That's what I said.
Yep, that sounds good.
You want to do that? You want to do that?
Sure.
That's fine with
All
me.
right.
Yeah, I think that'll work for me.
Okay,
You want to do 6 o'clock on February 2nd?
that's
Sure.
good with me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
that's-
sounds good.
Plug that in for now. If we have to change it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's not carved in stone yet until
No.
Jolene puts it up on the line and says, your meeting's in 2 days. Am I correct?
Got it, brother.
Does it make sense, though, to have some even if there's a consensus on a 3% increase to our budget, and Sarah can, as adeptly describe how she arrived at figures in anticipation of state numbers. Does it make sense, though, to sit with Lakeville and Acushnet representatives? We've done it before with towns that have been adversely affected by swings.
Yep.
Might it be nice to begin that conversation with those two communities in particular?
Yeah, we had a preliminary conversation with Richie LaCamera already over at Lakeville, and he's really got it. He's so good. He really has a great finger on the pulse in terms of just reaching out in anticipation of. So we had a preliminary conversation, but I think it would make sense to do something similar to what we did the year Rochester had 8, Shirley, and we all just sat down and talked through it. So perhaps we could reach out in collaboration with Mo, for Acushnet, and Bob for Lakeville, and just orchestrate something for late December or early January where we could, where we can just sit down and have a conversation with those folks and give them a heads up. I think that's the right thing to do.
Sure.
I would agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
If that could happen before that February 2nd meeting, so that we'll have an idea, because
We'll all be home December 25th, won't we?
I would hope.
Probably.
Well, because we're also talking about a February meeting, and that's amongst ourselves, and we have to bring FinCom reps in rather quickly after that meeting for Carter's sake.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it'd be nice to have those preliminary discussions. with those towns.
Joe, will you look and see what the meeting date was from last year when we met with FinCom, and we can probably pick a similar date, just so that we can kind of project where we may want to do that. I know a lot of it is, I mean, last year we were kind of throwing our arms up because we didn't have numbers, but
Okay.
could be helpful.
You know, it's interesting to me. I think back to, 1992 when I first started on this committee, and I believe I was on the budget subcommittee back then, and certainly through the 90s and early 2000s. And I think about what the process was then and how much it has changed, and certainly not for the better, because the state always gave you the cherry sheet. Well, almost always gave you the cherry sheet end of January, early February at the absolute latest, and you could make some plans based on some actual real numbers. It's almost as though we're taking a dart and throwing it. Through no fault of our own, that's just the way it is. And if in case anybody out there is watching, I think that's a point that they ought to understand. We can't make finite decisions at this point because we don't have finite information.
That's correct. Anyway, everybody all set? You got that?
Oh, just for a minute though, I want to comment to Bob that while all of that is definitely true, especially in this year and last year, we unfortunately do have to make decisions because
Right.
of town meetings.
Right.
So, this is our best estimation of what's going to happen. And we ask the indulgence of our town officials when we come back with, oh, it wasn't just quite the way we had planned it.
Yeah, I think the folks that I deal with here in Lakeville are, very much aware of that. I think probably most folks are. I mean, just the way. For those folks, parents and so forth, who could be watching, I'm not sure that if I were them, that I would necessarily understand that. And I think it's important that folks do understand that.
Well, I think what anybody would have heard tonight is a business manager who knows her stuff and can make an absolutely wonderful presentation. And people understand that we're not quite throwing darts, that we're doing as educated a budget as possible. And that hopefully is the reflection that anybody would take, who has attended that meeting.
Well, what I meant by the darts, Shirley, was with respect to the state figures, pretty much.
Yep, understood, Bob, understood.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? I'll call the meeting, adjourn the meeting, and you all have a good holiday actually.
Thank
Yes,
you.
all of you too.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Be well, Sarah.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes, yeah, take care of that. Well, my dad.